Vanessa, would you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
I'm Vanessa Goodin.
Vanessa Goodin had just stretched out on her bed for a routine after-work nap when she received a call on her cell phone. It's around 5:30 p.m. on December 17, 2010, when Vanessa picks up the phone to her jovial cousin, 25-year-old Angela Frazier, informing her that she had secured a babysitter for her two daughters and that they, just the two of them, were going to have a Friday night out on the town. Angela told Vanessa she didn't care where they were going, just that she wanted to get out of her Williamsburg, Kentucky home and that she was going to come by soon. Vanessa begins thinking of places to go. Earlier that day, she saw a message on a Facebook group chat from a guy who said his band is playing at the Players Club in Richmond. A live band on a Friday night sounded good to both, so Angela drives the two of them there. While there, Vanessa gets a text message from a 34-year-old man named Jason Singleton, who knew her husband. Jason asks her what her and her husband were doing that night, to which Vanessa tells him she is currently only with her cousin. Jason had asked Vanessa on previous occasions about the relationship status of her friends, but she told him they were all married. On this night, however, Vanessa's answer will be different. Angela, she tells him, is single. Unbeknownst to Vanessa, this answer would set off a devastating chain of events that would destroy the lives of multiple people.
So their meeting is just kind of entirely a fluke.
Very much so.
Do you wish you could do that night over, Vanessa?
Absolutely. I've thought of that night ever since.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Robert Lee Kelly.
About a month later, on January 19, 2011, Robert Lee Kelly was driving a tractor off Tate's Creek, just northwest of Richmond. The farm laborer had been transporting some hay when he came upon some garbage bags beyond a gate. To Robert, the dumping of garbage in this area was a common occurrence, a nuisance to be sure. One way he learned to address this was to shuffle through the bags to find a paper that would provide identifying information so he could report the person or persons to authorities. As he's digging through the first bag, he finds a second bag. He palms it as he's trying to open it and feels the texture of what he thinks is deer hair. When he tears it open, he stumbles back. He then calls 911 to report that he had just found a severed head. What police discovered was 6 garbage bags, all containing body parts of what they suspected belonged to Angela Frazier. The reason they suspected it to be Angela's remains, which was later confirmed by the medical examiner, was because she had been reported missing just a couple of days prior, on a Monday evening, when her mother couldn't get a hold of her. And of course, when her car was discovered abandoned on the side of a road that night.
Will you tell the jury your name, please?
Nancy, Canada.
Who is Angela to you?
She's my daughter.
How did you first come to know that something was wrong?
Well, I went to work that Monday morning and I tried to call her several times and I didn't get an answer, so I'd call my other daughter, Katie, and I asked her to call her sister, and she called, and Angela was not answering her phone, and nobody could, I had several people calling her that day. And later that evening, her phone went to voicemail. And Katie had talked to a friend, and they said they couldn't get a hold of her either.
Okay, so you were trying to call her, and
Yes,
Katie is who?
my daughter.
So
Angela's sister.
was trying to call her, and you knew of other people that
Yes.
were trying to call her. Had anybody spoken to her?
No.
By that Monday, it had been about a month since she was married by the Church of God in Williamsburg to Jason Singleton, a mere 3 days after the two met at the Players Club in Richmond that Friday night. The night went so well that Vanessa drove Angela's car back to her house because Angela was going to spend the night with Jason at his home at 110 Forest Hill Drive.
Did she come get her car back from you?
She came the next day to get her car, and
How'd she seem?
she seemed happy. He was happy. They were both happy.
Was he with her?
He was with her, yes. He came with her to get her car, and From there, they went to Angela's house. So he ended up going home with her.
And do you understand that they stayed there for a while?
I know they stayed there that night. I talked to him the next day on Monday, because that was a Sunday when...
Any red flags at that point? Anything seem ominous or menacing about it?
No. Yeah, they stayed there a few days, for sure, because I'd talked to him on Monday, and they were still together in Williamsburg.
Okay. When did you learn, if you did, that they had gotten married?
I believe it was Monday. It was early that week. I'm thinking Monday they
That would
called
be
me.
the 20th?
Yeah, it was the 20th, yes. And I remember that date. It was definitely the 20th. They called me, and Angela did. She called, and she said, "You're not going to believe this." She said, "We got married."
What was
And
your-
I didn't believe her. She was right. I did not believe her. In fact, I said, "You are lying." You know, put Jason on the phone.
And did she put Jason on?
Yeah, Jason gets on the phone, and he confirms it. He said, "No, we really did." He goes, "I know it's crazy, but we really did."
How did they seem?
They seemed happy. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, they seemed very happy, both of them.
So did they seem to be drugged up or out of their minds or anything
No.
like that?
No.
Seem sober?
To me, they seemed sober, yes.
Where were you when she told you that?
At my house?
Was she alone?
Yes.
Okay. Were you surprised?
Yes. At first I didn't believe her, but she told me, yeah.
Do you remember when it was that she told you that?
No.
Okay. What did you think about it?
Like I said, I didn't believe her at first. I thought, that maybe they was talking about it, but it was surprising to me,
Did it seem to sort of be a rash decision?
Yes.
How'd you feel about her making that kind of rash decision?
I didn't like it, but,
Yeah. Did Angela always do things that you agreed with?
no.
By that point in her life, Angela was happy and doing well for herself after divorcing her previous husband. She had a car, a good job, and she was living in a home across from her mother in Williamsburg.
Angela enjoyed life. She was a good kid. She was in Girl Scouts when she was little. She played softball in school. She was very outgoing. She was a good person.
I mean, I've known Angela her whole life. I fed Angela her bottle. I helped Angela walk. I played with Angela. Even as a teenager when I didn't want to play, I would play dolls with Angela. We were that close. I mean, she grew up with me. I was there when her babies were born. She was very happy to be a mama. She was there with my little girls. Once I got married, she would spend the night with me and want to change my baby's diapers. So, and she was very outgoing. She had played softball in school. She had a lot of friends. Anybody that met her, she had a smile. She would greet you with a smile. She loved life. I mean, she was a happy person most of the time.
Then, in an instant, around Christmas 2010, Angela uproots and moves with her 2 daughters into Jason's home in Richmond.
Just state your name for the judge and jury, please.
Officer Matthew Gates.
Officer Matthew Gates was at the Somerset Police Department on January 20, one day after parts of Angela's body were discovered, when he got a call about a suspicious subject at the Somerset Mall. It was an armed Jason Singleton, and he wasn't complying with mall security. Soon, Jason is running across the parking lot and driving off before crashing his vehicle. He runs on foot to a local truck driving training facility, where he takes 4 employees hostage inside. During the 20-minute standoff, Officer Gates calls and learns from an ex-fiancée of Jason's named Christina Tompkins Markham that he had previously been prescribed amphetamines and that he was likely sleep-deprived. More interestingly, Christina said she heard that his wife Angela would not leave him alone. Detective Gates tells her he may need to speak with her later and gets her contact information. Jason would eventually surrender to police and was taken into custody for the hostage incident, but they didn't yet know whether he was actually involved in Angela's murder. There was, however, enough suspicion to get a search warrant at his home on Forest Hill Drive that night. Part of that suspicion emerged from an interaction detailed in a very important police report authored the day before she was reported missing. 4 days earlier, at 4:30 a.m. that Sunday, the 16th of January, 2 deputies were sent to the Forest Hill home on a domestic call. When they got there, Jason's parents told them they were called over by Jason, who wasn't home at the time, so they could help him move Angela's stuff out of his home. On the front porch was a baby swing, several bags of clothes, and other personal items they said belonged to Angela. Angela, who was in the house at the time, would tell the deputies that she agreed to move out that Friday on Jason's request. It was, according to Vanessa, abrupt and without explanation.
Yes,
Jason and Angela were not happy.
not until Friday
Okay.
before she went missing.
Okay.
That's the first indication I had that they were not happy.
What happened on Friday?
Friday, Angela called me and she said that Jason wanted her to leave and she didn't know why. His reason was he said he was going to have a party and she needed to leave. She told him that if she could just stay there, she would stay in the bedroom and they would never know she was there. She said he was adamant she leave. So she ended up coming to my house that Friday evening. And
So that was on Friday.
mm-hmm.
And did she stay with you that Friday evening?
No, she was there for a little while with me. She was upset.
Okay. Describe for the jury what you mean.
She was crying, just upset. Her feelings were hurt. She didn't know why he was acting that way. She said it was just very different behavior than how he had been treating her.
Angela was initially locked out of her home because she said Jason changed the locks. The police told her she had every right to get access because this was marital property. At some point, the deputy gets on the phone with Jason, who tells him Angela was trash, that he shouldn't have hooked up with her, and he didn't believe the marriage was real. The deputy told him that if they were married, he could not simply kick her out, and if they weren't, he would need to serve her with an eviction notice. The deputy also told him to stop calling the police about civil complaints. Jason apologized and said he would be back in the morning to talk about his relationship with Angela. As this was happening, a couple of other cops drove up Angela's car on the property. Angela had reported the car stolen because it was not there when she arrived, but Jason's mom told them it was parked around the corner for an unexplained reason. After an examination of the car, Angela said it had clearly been rummaged through. This wasn't the first time Angela had issues at Jason's home. She also complained that she had her money stolen, which forced her to take up a job dancing at the Platinum Strip Club in Lexington the night before, so she could figure out her temporary living situation after getting the boot. Frustrated by the circumstances, Angela exclaimed to the deputy, "If they want me to be a bitch, I will." She then shows the deputies 2 driver's licenses. They both contain the same photo of Jason's brother Tyler, but with different names. Jason, she told deputies, had a side business selling fake Florida IDs so druggies could go to the Sunshine State and get pills they were addicted to. Angela then escorted one of the deputies into the home to find the equipment, which would typically include a printer, blank white cards, and a lamination machine. But they couldn't find it. Angela said Jason must have taken it with him. By 8 p.m. that night, Jason and Tyler are making their case that they have no idea about any fake ID making operation. Jason told the deputy that Angela was crazy and that it was probably her or her friends making them. He said he didn't have the equipment to do it and he couldn't do it at the computer center at which he worked. The deputy told them Angela already gave them a statement and that the brothers should come clean and tell them who they sold the IDs to, but they continued to deny having any involvement. Thank God she was gone, Jason told the deputy, according to the police report, adding he had a problem with crazy women, and he was always drawn to women lower than him. He then made the passing remark that he wanted to get a lawyer to remove Angela from his life.
This is the entering into the garage door area. This is the knife that we recovered.
That's the voice and video of Detective Bill Collins, who executed the search of Jason's home on the night of Thursday, January 20, the day Jason was charged with 4 counts of unlawful imprisonment, first-degree disorderly, and criminal mischief in the hostage event. And was it ever a search? Lead Detective Brian Reeder said it was the largest collection of evidence for one case in his career, at over 160 pieces. Detective Collins said the house smelled like smoke and fire, with an impression that it had been cleaned. But in the mounds of evidence collected, it turned out it was what wasn't there that was probably the most glaring indication that something bad happened in the upstairs living room.
We're upstairs. What's that?
This is just the living room where we found the cover, the oxide lines. There's the couch that we took the sample from. The remodeling action.
So that's a peroxide bottle on that, and then the saw.
A huge cutout of carpet was evident at the foot of the green couch, a circular saw right there next to it. The chemical luminol was used on the carpet and couch, which showed that there was possibly blood concentrated in that area. A peroxide bottle that could be used to clean the area was also there. Fluids were collected from the sink traps of the bathrooms, trash bags that could be linked to those used to store Angela's body parts, knives that could have been used to dismember her, electronics such as hard drives to show any evidence of illegal activity that could indicate motive, 10 nails found in the fireplace, and all sorts of debris, none more important than that from a fire that Thursday morning.
Kelly Jean Davis,
Where do you live, Mr. Davis?
111 Forest Hill Drive.
Is that across the street from Mr. Singleton's former residence, 110 Forest Hill?
Directly.
I've asked you to come in this morning with an incident that occurred, I guess it would have been Thursday, January the 20th of 2011. I think, do you recall that morning?
I do.
All right. Could you please tell the jury what happened? I think maybe you had a conversation with your wife when you all first got up. Or
Yeah,
just tell them what happened.
I don't recall the times, 7:30, between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. We were just getting ready, normal morning for work. I had noticed smoke coming out of the back of Jason's home. We're looking, there were no cars in the driveway that day, which we found unusual. Normally there were cars in the driveway that time in the morning. So, but there was this big it was black smoke, gray black smoke coming out of the back. It was really unusual to see that kind of smoke coming out. I mean, we've seen fires, everybody in my neighborhood has fireplaces. It was not a normal fireplace fire to me. So I got dressed, threw on some clothes, was starting to go across the street. Now Jason's front door is about 50 feet from mine, maybe 60. So as I was angling across the road, he came out of the front door because I was going to go around back of the house down his driveway to see what was going on. Jason came out the front door, and I asked him if everything was okay. He said everything was fine. He said he was just burning some stuff, and I was, getting ready for work, so I just turned around. I called. Well, during my walk across, I had called 911 to report a fire because there was no conversation. Well, yeah, it was 10 seconds, if that. Very brief. Everything okay? Yeah, I'm just burning some stuff. Are we done? I left. And then I called 911 back to let them know that the owner was home. I thought the house was empty and that he was just burning some things, and that was it.
Among the fire debris found was what looked like fiber from a red carpet, wood, and an accelerant, proving that this was consistent with the deliberate burning of the wood flooring and carpet from the upstairs living room. Investigators believe that the carpet was thick enough to absorb a lot of blood. Jason's interview on the 20th was initially about the hostage situation, but quickly turned to Angela's death.
Bill Collins.
In the position you hold with the state police.
I am a sergeant with Kentucky State Police.
He had been detained on unrelated charges, but in that process, he had revealed the possible murder and they interviewed him with that.
Okay. Now, one of the things that you noticed when you began interviewing Jason Singleton was that there was something wrong with his hands.
That's correct.
All right, what was it?
appeared to be a red rash or possibly a burn,
Like
chemical burn.
Yeah. But you made comments to him about the chemical burn,
Correct.
that obviously it's bleach or been using something like that.
That's correct.
Now, you also noticed that there was something wrong with his knees.
Correct.
All right, what was that?
A blue discoloration to his knees.
Like bruises?
When he was standing, it was more faint, but it was a bluish discoloration like a bruise.
On both of them?
Yes, sir.
Almost as if he'd been on his knees cutting up carpet.
His knees were bruised, definitely.
Now, other than these two obvious things, how did he appear physically?
He had a cut on his forehead from being involved in a collision. He had a scratch or cut around his chest area, and he had some cuts on his hands and around the fingers.
Now, did he have soot on him?
I don't recall seeing any obvious soot on him.
Okay. Did you tell him at one time to get this weight off of him and get that poison out of him?
That might have been Detective Peters that said some of that. I may have said it's time that this is eating you alive. Let's get it out.
Do you care? We're having trouble seeing him.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, and I may have said something along that lines. I don't recall exactly.
Okay. Did you tell him, I know you got chemical burns on your hand. I'm going to suspect it's probably bleach that you washed your hands with.
And I may have said that, yes, sir. And that may have been Detective. I know Detective Peters said something along that same.
Okay, so some
One of us would have said
that. There came a point in time in which Jason left the room, or didn't leave the room because he wasn't free to leave, but he asked for an attorney.
That's correct.
Okay, and then you all left.
We at least was in the threshold of the door in the vicinity.
And then he summons you back in and wants to talk some more.
He kept engaging us in conversation.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the medical examiner ruled that Angela's cause of death was strangulation, but she also found fractured ribs and stab wounds on the diaphragm and the liver. A toxicology report found a mix of drugs in her blood that was enough, according to the medical examiner, to induce shortness of breath and fatal heart rhythms. For people who knew Angela, she would never take drugs in this amount, let alone on the morning she was supposed to simply grab her stuff from Jason's home, leave, and never look back.
Could you please tell the jury your name?
Laura Young.
Could you please tell the jury how you know Jason Singleton?
I was his first wife.
Okay, and when were you married?
October 17th, 1998.
During your marriage, how long were you married?
Just a little over 3 years. We separated before we hit 3 years, but the divorce was not final until April 1st of 2001.
Okay, until 2001. Let me ask you this, was Jason Singleton ever physically abusive to you?
No, he was not.
Tell them if you would, however, were there problems in your marriage?
Yes, there were many problems.
Was one of those problems his drug use?
Yes.
Okay. Tell them if you would how your marriage ended to Jason Singleton.
He had gone to the Philippines for work, and I knew something wasn't right because I couldn't reach him, and he wouldn't return my phone calls. And he finally did call me on my birthday from a bar and told me that he had met Ann and he was leaving me for her.
Okay, who's Ann?
Ann is his second wife that he met in the Philippines.
Okay, how long was he in the Philippines on that trip?
Maybe a month to month and a half.
And you said it was for work. What did he do at the time?
He was a network administrator with Lexmark.
Okay. And were you aware that he ultimately switched jobs and had a different job than that, but sometime after your marriage ended?
Yes, he went to work for ACS.
Okay. And the reason I'm going to try to fight, you would know that because you all have a child together.
Yes.
And he was obligated to pay you child support.
Yes.
So you were aware of what job he had that sort of thing.
Yes.
Did he have a good job?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Now, you said Ann, he married the woman that he called you and told you he was leaving you for.
Yes.
When he called you from the Philippines and told you that, did you all ever live together again?
No, we did not.
Real quick, how fast did your divorce move?
It took about maybe a year, not quite a year, 9 months.
How quickly did he ever come to the house that you shared with him and move his stuff out?
His parents came and moved his things out.
And that would be Ed and Lita Singleton?
Yes.
Okay, so Jason never came?
He came to visit Madeline. He did take his stereo and his TV, his electronics. But I packed up his things, and his parents came and picked them up.
Was Jason eager to divorce you?
Yes.
And why was that?
Because he wanted to get Ann over here and marry Ann.
Now, are you aware of the circumstances of his breakup with Ann?
I know that it was very abrupt.
They separated in August 2008, but Jason already had another woman lined up, who was the ex-fiancée and the woman immediately preceding Angela, Christina Tompkins.
Tell the jury how you met Christina Tompkins.
Christina and I met in the fall of 2009. We met at a gymnastics class. Her daughter and my daughter both were in the gymnastics class together. And Christina and I, neither one of us knew anyone there, so we just became friends by that. We sit together for an hour every week and talked. So we just became friends through that.
Best friends, close friends, something more than an acquaintance?
Eventually we became better friends. We would text and talk, and, we tried to hang out some eventually.
Did you know Jason Singleton?
I met him at the ball field the spring of 2010, I guess. Christina introduced me to him.
So you knew Jason through your friendship with Christina?
Right.
Jason made it such a habit of dumping women and quickly moving on to the next one that Vanessa joked about it to him when he kicked Angela out of his home on the Friday night before she went missing.
It's January 14th at 9:24 p.m.
Okay, so Friday night at 9:24. What did you send to him?
I said, "Why do you send your women to me to take care of?" LOL.
What was that in reference to?
That was in reference to going back to the night that he sent Christina to my house. He wouldn't let Christina go home. I had to take Christina in that night. So then here's Angela coming to me because he's kicked her out.
But the response from Jason was surprising. The text told Vanessa to lose his number and never call him again. You dirty whores. That's plural. On the day Jason was arrested, 27-year-old Christina, the social worker who had married a man named Nick Markham in November, was asked to come in for an interview as a key witness against Jason.
I was engaged to Jason for over 2 years. We met, I want to say August of 2008, and I got my engagement ring 3 weeks later. He was married at the time, filing for a divorce, and it never seemed right to me, if that makes sense. I got a $10,000 engagement ring in 3 weeks. He bought me a Lexus in 3 months. That was, the car that I wanted, but at the same time, it just never seemed right.
But in October 2010, Jason and Christina broke it off after the altercation Vanessa talked about.
So what month was it that you all split up?
October of 2010.
Okay.
Because he had me put in jail.
What did he have you put in jail for?
Assault.
Okay, what was the basis of that?
Well, he's crazy, and I think he lost his mind. He hadn't probably slept in days, I would say. At the time, he was working a lot of hours. He was working most of them from home, but he just never seemed to sleep. I'd say there's probably 3 days there that I went to bed, but it seemed like he never went to bed. So anyway, I took my daughter to school. It was on a Friday morning. I took my daughter to school, and Jason went and laid down after I brought her back, so say 8:30 in the morning. And he woke up at 2:30 in the afternoon, and I had pulled out his wallet and had gone through his stuff in his pants pockets just because I felt like he was hiding something. I just wanted to really know what it was. Like, I knew it wasn't a girl's number or anything like that. Just real eerie kind of feeling I had, I guess. Kind of just make you sick to your stomach. And I took the stuff and like I was gonna make copies of like his Mason cards and stuff. And when I came back in, this is about, like I said, it's about 2:30 in the afternoon. It's about 2. And he woke up and like just completely flipped out because I had gone through his stuff and he felt like some stuff was missing, and he was freaking out because he had some luncheon he was supposed to go to at 11 o'clock that day for somebody who was leaving, and it wasn't 11 o'clock, so I was trying to tell him it was like 2 o'clock, and he wasn't registering with him. He picked up my purse and like flung it, was dumping it out on the floor, and was looking, I don't know what he was looking for, I guess for the keys, and I had hidden the keys underneath the mattress, so I took the car keys and I ran out the door, and he said that he was going to call the police and report my car stolen. Well, I went straight to file an EPO is what I was going to do, and then I decided not to because after talking to them, they told me that basically if I file an EPO, that I'm not going to have a place to live. You know, that me and my daughter would have to go because him and I weren't married. And so I thought, well, I'll just go back to the house, let him calm down, because my biggest thing was just getting my stuff out of the house, you know, and trying to make a transition with us breaking up and finally moving on, be as simple as it could for my daughter, more so than anybody. We went back to the house, and Jason was, you know, Jason, me, and my daughter rode home from the school together. So the trooper pretty much knew that he was going to be back out there because of the situation and everything that was already going on. So I got to the house, and Jason pulled the car in the garage. I get out of the car, and he goes in the house, and then he starts yelling at me, wanting his car key, and accusing me of having the car key. And I'm telling him, I don't have the key. You know I don't have the key. I know that trooper gave you your car key. I know he did. And Jason was insisting that no, he didn't give him the key, that I had the key. So anyways, I called the cop on the phone just to be like, hey, I just want to make sure you gave Jason his car key back. Is that correct? And he's like, yeah, absolutely, yeah, I gave it to him. So as one thing led to another, and we were in the front yard, and I hit him in the back of the head with my phone, and that's when he called the police, and the same trooper that had been involved earlier, you know, 30, 45 minutes later, was the one that came out and arrested me. So I spent the weekend in jail, and that pretty much told me, you know, I kind of laughed about it, but I thought, gosh, I didn't realize he hated me that much. I didn't realize it was like that, I guess. And really just saw it as a blessing because I'm the type of person that it would be hard for me to leave on my own, you know. I mean, I could totally watch and see how their relationship just declined, but being in it, it's hard to step back and really see it. So I was in therapy for the last 6 months, I would say.
Of y'all's relationship you were?
Yeah.
What kind of therapy?
Just like a therapist.
For what purpose, though, is what I'm asking.
She specialized, I think, in BPD, I want to say, is one of the things.
What's BPD?
I don't know, because I don't even know if I've been diagnosed with it, but it's like a borderline personality disorder. This is what Jason said I had. He diagnosed me with that.
Self-diagnosed you?
Yeah, and so I think that's one of the things that she does specialize in. But it's really just for someone who's had traumatic issues in the past and trying to overcome them is pretty much what she does. She actually called me on Sunday, and I've got an appointment tomorrow. So.
Okay. What made us call you on Sunday?
Saved my life.
This past Sunday she just called you?
She saved my life.
What do you mean she saved your life?
He said, Christina, God must really have a plan for you.
That's what Jason said?
Yeah.
What's he mean by that?
I don't know.
Okay, so have y'all been having some problems here lately then?
Jason and I? I haven't been talking to him till like last Thursday. Jason Osborne I don't know if you know him or not. He's trash. He's not anyone that I've ever associated with. Was staying at the house with Jason Singleton, staying in their house. And Jason Osborne had started texting me about the girl that was living there and the things that were going on in that house. And was just telling me like she was trash and on about how she was crazy and how she had to go. And he'd try to tell Jason, try to convince Jason that he needed to not be with this girl, but like Jason just wasn't comprehending it.
Right.
And so I knew that if I talked to Jason that he would see what he was doing and would realize, because the biggest thing was that they were smoking meth and that sort of thing. And I know Jason Osborne's bad news. I guess that's what got for me. If Jason Osborne is going to say that someone's on, that she's on drugs, then I know she must really have a problem.
Right.
You know, because he's a drug addict.
Christina said she had met her current husband, Nick Markham, during a difficult time in her life. She said she had been coming off an emotionally and verbally abusive relationship with Jason. She said she and Nick had been talking to each other in a friend support type relationship in her last month with Jason, but it started getting more serious as she was preparing to file her emergency protective order against the man now accused of killing Angela.
And anyway, he knew I told him my bond was like $2,500, so, I mean, he came to get me to bail me out on Monday, but they reduced my bond to like $500.
Okay.
And so we've been together pretty much ever since. And so that's why I have a secret marriage. When I did get married 2 weeks later, I had a lot of stuff going on in my head. I was going to have a really bad relationship. I've been really verbally, emotionally abused, just in every way possible. I was really just very distraught that I got married. I mean, I wasn't thinking clearly when I did it, honestly.
So was Jason abusive towards you then?
Yeah.
How was he abusive?
He wasn't necessarily physically abusive a lot. There was never anything really bad. I think that's probably why Nick really wanted me to get out of that house, was because Jason had wrecked the car and I told Nick about it, and Nick said that he could buff it out. And when I went to Nick's house, like the day after he said that, I had bruises and stuff on my arms really bad.
Was that from Jason?
Yeah. But I bruised very easily. But yeah, I had bruises all over my arms and stuff.
So when's the last time you saw Jason?
I saw him this morning.
Where'd you see him at this morning?
He came by my house.
What time was that?
Probably around 9:30. He was very distraught. He was at work.
Okay.
He was very distraught, just very, and my biggest thing is been telling me he just needs to sleep. I don't know, I guess obviously he's on meth, I don't know. To me, I didn't know, because I don't know what someone who's on meth acts or whatever, but I mean, it's just like, he was just like sleep deprived. That's how he seemed to me, which is the same way he was on the pills.
Appearance-wise?
Oh, it was awful.
Describe what he looked like to me whenever he showed up to your house.
He looked like he'd been hit by a train. His face looked dirty. I mean, that's why he looked like he'd been hit by a train. Like, he looked like he'd been working in a coal mine or something.
Did he say why he looked that way? Did you ask him?
I just said, what's going on? I didn't know why he looked like that. I just told him, you need to wash your face, and got him and washed it
Whenever
off.
you asked him, why do you look like that, what did he say?
I don't know. I don't remember what he said about that. He was more trying to talk to me about helicopters and people following him and just like really, really crazy stuff.
Who do you think was following him?
People from Corbin or the police. I mean, obviously the helicopters were the police. He thought people were knocking on my door.
Was there anybody knocking on your door?
Not that I heard, you know. I mean, if there were, I would have opened the door.
Did he say why he thought the police were following him?
No, but I mean, he really didn't have to say, I guess, because I already knew about her car, and then I had heard about a body, and so I just had more of this sick feeling telling me that was her, that something had gone on, but at the same time trying to tell myself no. Because I mean, this is the person that I slept in the same bed with for over 2 years. I mean, he put a roof over my head, he paid my bills. My daughter lived in his house, you know?
Right.
I mean, it's very traumatic as far as to think that someone that I've lived with would have any involvement in something like this or any part. I mean, it could have been me, you know. That's bad for me to say because it's not me, it's somebody else. But at the same time, I mean, he had threatened to kill me before. I mean, within the week before, within the few days before I left, he held my head down on the floor and told me he was going to kill me probably 3 or 4 times.
So whenever he came there this morning, what was the purpose of him coming there?
To talk to me.
Okay, what do you want to talk to you about?
About the helicopters and all. I mean, it was very, I couldn't get anything out of him as far as what's going on, what are you doing, that sort of thing. He was just all over the place about thinking that my windows were tapped and just crazy nonsense.
Right.
And so I don't want to say anything that's going to even put me around him during that time. And that's just for my own personal safety because I haven't done anything. I don't know of anything. Only thing I know is my own personal suspicions. And so I don't want to say anything that's going to incriminate myself or put me, you know, I don't know what you guys are doing and what you guys are working with, and I don't want to put myself where...
Okay, the only thing I ask you is anything that you know, just be honest with me on.
Yeah, I am.
You know he was arrested today. I mean, the police called. So we've had people down there to talk to him. What do you think he's probably telling us about what's happened?
I don't know.
Well, like I said, I just want you to be honest. He's not wanting you to be involved in any of this.
Well, that's good because I'm not.
Okay. And I'm not saying you are, but I think he's confided in you on what's happened. And with that said, if you know that and you don't help us out on it, eventually you can be associated with the crime by helping him cover it up. You understand what I'm saying? You've got a lot to lose. You've got a dog.
No, I don't want to lose anything. So
No,
yeah.
and that's why I'm asking you to be honest with us now and tell us what he's told you. Because it's evident that he's told you something about Sunday, or you wouldn't say, I don't want to talk to you about that. So there's something that has happened then that you don't want to talk about. There's a reason why. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the only thing I ask for you is just tell me what he's told you, what he came to the house and told you today, what's happened.
Can I tell you when I have an attorney present?
Well, that's up to you,
I'll
but if
tell
you haven't done
exactly
anything wrong,
anything that he's told me or whatever, anything that I assume or I suspect, I'll tell you anything and everything, even though I can't give you much, but I'll tell you what I do know. But I would feel like, okay, you can blow up my record. I have DUIs, you know.
Yeah, we'll put up your record. We know that.
Okay, and seeing me, I hope I don't look like a criminal, you know. And I'm just saying that's the most trouble that I've ever been in or ever known anyone to be in.
Right.
And so that's why I would feel more comfortable if I don't get a DUI and call an attorney and have an attorney with me.
If he's confided in you and told you something like that, then we just need to know what he said. We know what's happened there, but we need to know what he's actually done. And I know that you know. And that's all I ask is you to tell me what you know. I don't want you to make anything up. I just want to know what you know about it. And like I said before, I'm not sitting there saying that you're the one that actually did it.
Well, I'm not, so.
Okay, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you are. But you know what happened at that house. I mean,
If I told you I know anything about it, then like I said, it's my fault for not coming to you sooner.
but you just told me that you were scared. You were scared to.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it okay.
Well,
You're not going to sit here and slap my wrist and say, oh, that's okay.
okay,
Because you
you
were
didn't have
scared.
anything to do with it, and he came to you and confided in you, then you've done nothing wrong if that's all that you've done.
Then, yeah.
How? Explain to me, there's no criminal law against you just sitting there and
Because I
listening.
thought I would have to come forward and say something. Isn't that a crime?
It's not a crime it's a crime if you try to cover something up. That's when it becomes a crime.
Right.
Have you tried to cover anything up here?
No.
If you didn't call us, why did you not call us? Why did you tell me why you did not call us?
Because I was scared. I feared for my own life. I
And
feared
why
for my
is-
daughter.
And why is that?
Because he was abusive to me.
Okay. And
Because
what
I've
do you
lived with
think?
him for over 2 years. I mean, I didn't know what he was capable of.
Right. So did he shoot her with the gun?
No, I don't think so.
Tell us how he did it. How he told you he did it. I know how he did it. I know what he says did happened. I know what the autopsy report says. Let's see if we're on the right track.
Strangulation.
Tell me why he did it. That's something I really like to know. I don't understand why he did it. Why not just kick her out and get rid of her?
Because she wouldn't leave.
Wouldn't leave. So she left and came back and wouldn't leave.
Oh, I guess he said I killed someone.
Did he say someone or did he tell you her name?
No, he never said her name, but, I mean, it was pretty evident by what I was hearing on the news or what everybody was calling me, telling me.
Well, did he say how he did it?
Yeah, I mean, he told me that he strangled her. Now, can I go?
Did he say, well, yeah, you're on clothes?
Can I just go?
Did he say what or where?
No, he didn't tell me any of that stuff.
Any details about how he did it?
No,
Just that he strangled her.
yes.
Did he say how it all started?
No, I don't know.
And he didn't say why. What did you do when he told you that?
I just freaked out and said, no, you didn't. I mean, no, you didn't. You couldn't have.
What did he say to that?
Just that he was sorry. All he ever really told me, without even saying that he ever did anything, was that he was sorry. He was so sorry.
He never told you when. He never told you why.
I don't want to answer anything else without an attorney. I just don't feel comfortable. Like, I'm scared to sit here and be talking to you all about it.
Why are you scared?
Because I'm sitting here telling you how I know of this crime and I didn't come forward before.
That's what we told you. We're not worried about that. We're not interested in that. We are not interested in it. You hear this? She's going to be on your side, I'm sure. We're not interested. You didn't come forward. It's very
You had every
being a state police officer.
every reason whatsoever to not call. I mean, you were scared of him. You've been abused by him. You wanted to get an EPO on him. He just confided in you that he killed somebody, and you know what he's capable of. So you had every reason in the world to be terrified of this man, and afraid if you called to try to report it, that he would come after you.
That's understandable. Don't that make sense to you too? I mean, that makes sense. I mean, would you have reported it?
I don't know.
No, you not understand that. Okay. So the only thing you're worried about, the only thing that's going to come out that you're scared about, is that he told you he strangled her and you didn't tell the police right away.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you're worried about.
Yeah.
10 days down the road, we're not going to find out you whacked her on the head with something or anything,
No.
right? Okay.
Promise you that.
Okay. But you're only involved. Now, was that hard?
No, I'm just scared.
I don't understand that. You have every right to be scared. You have every right not to report it. Because you know more about it than we do. And he's a scary person.
No, don't go to him telling him I've said
I'm not
this.
going to
I know
him.
you will.
No.
I know you will. Get him
Just
confess.
say it.
I mean,
I'm not going to tell him that, okay? I'm telling you. I'm as straight as an arrow.
please don't. Please just get him to tell you what happened.
Okay, and what time was it you left on Sunday?
Probably around 3.
Around 3.
Was he married to this girl?
He wanted me to look for the paper. He wanted me to go through her car and look for the paper, look for the marriage certificate, because he was all about trying to get that back. And so, like, I took some papers and stuff out of the car and put them in a bag in the bedroom, and that was it. And I went up the steps to get my shirt.
So was she there then?
She was asleep
Okay, where was she asleep at?
on the couch.
This is on Sunday.
Yeah,
Was she asleep or passed out?
probably passed out.
Okay. So when you left, who all was at the house?
Just him and her.
Okay.
Before she could speak further, however, she asked for an immunity deal. Detective Reeder was not yet prepared to ask the prosecutors about that, perhaps because this was only day 1 of the investigation. But he doesn't deny it either. So the interview ends there. But Detective Reeder knew he wanted to speak with Christina again, if only because, for whatever reason, Jason was found to be in possession of her husband's credit card.
Sean, please introduce yourself to the jury.
Hello, I'm Sean Frederick.
It was as if the call was expected. Sean Frederick got a call that Friday night from a crying Angela, who informed him that she had been kicked out of Jason's home. Sean and Angela met around the Christmas of 2009, and the two dated for about 6 months before mutually breaking it off. Sean reconnected with Angela over Facebook, and one of the first things Angela told him was that she married Jason. But in the latter stages of her marriage to him, Angela wasn't having a good time, and she needed a friend in which to confide. So, 2 days before that Friday, the pair grabbed lunch to catch up on a friends-only basis.
What was the deal with Angela when you had lunch? How was she? How did she seem to you?
Well, I mean, you got to know how she is. Like, she's real bubbly, free spirit, kind of reminds you of Dharma from Dharma and Greg, kind of live by the seat of her pants type of person. She's always flighty, always had a smile on her face. And that day she had a pretty big smile at first, and then, as, time progressed, it's like she must have been bipolar or something, because, her moods changed back and forth, no offense, like most women. But,
I'd say none taken, but maybe there was. Now, so you said she was moody.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, she could be happy one minute and then, get onto a certain subject and then make her sad for a moment, but then she'd get happy again. And
So is that what happened during lunch?
yeah, basically.
Anything major going on during the lunch?
She explained to me the situation that she was in. She said that she thought her husband was cheating on her and that he was involved in some stuff, she thought was illegal stuff.
Specifically, did she mention fake IDs?
Yes, ma'am. She showed me several fake IDs.
Okay, so she showed them to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Talked to you about them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, do you know anything about who was on them?
No, ma'am. I hadn't. It's just she said that they were felons and they couldn't get an ID in Florida, and they were all Florida IDs though.
Okay. And did she tell you who was making those?
She said that her husband was making them.
Did she mention anybody else making them with him?
She never did mention any names, no, ma'am.
Okay. When she told you that she also thought that he was cheating on her,
Yes, ma'am.
did she know anything about that or just a suspicion?
She said that he had suspicious behavior, that he'd be gone long hours of the night and stuff, and come home smelling like a woman and this and that.
Okay. Now, how did it end? You go to lunch, you have that conversation, she tells you about the fake IDs, she tells you about the cheating. What happened that day? Anything?
Well, no, ultimately that night, or that day, after, it's about time for me to go back to class, she drops me off, and I don't talk to her for about another day or so. And she calls me on the phone.
Did she call you on that Friday?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell the jury about that.
She called me and she was crying hysterically. I could barely understand a word she was saying. Mostly what I got out of her was, I'm on my way over.
And over to be?
To where I lived,
Okay.
to my house, because I done finished my classes for the day, and I was already at home and gearing up for the next night.
Okay. So what happened after she called you? Did she come over?
Yes, she come over immediately. Like, she was on her way when she called me.
What had made her be crying hysterically?
She said that Jason had come home, I guess from work or whatever, and he told her that he was going out with some buddies, and then whenever he got home that she wasn't to be there.
The next steps were to get Angela a job, and that's when the idea of dancing at the Platinum Strip Club in Lexington emerged. Angela had done it briefly in the past. The plan was for her to make some money, go to Jason's house the next day to get her stuff, leave for good, and rebuild her life. Angela, to be sure, had her concerns living with Jason. 2 weeks into the marriage, at the beginning of January, she asked a dating couple, Cheyenne and Betty, to come stay at Jason's place for safety and babysitting reasons. The couple stayed there for about 2 weeks, but they provided Detective Reader enough information a week after Jason was arrested about what had been going on in the house. Cheyenne, who was in her late teens at the time, said the typical day would consist of her staying with Angela's children on the lower level of the home, while Angela and Jason did drugs upstairs.
So you said you'd be downstairs watching the kids, they'd be upstairs. You mentioned the drugs, and you mentioned making fake IDs, right?
Yes.
Will you please tell the jury everything you know about them making fake IDs?
They would look on the internet, get people's information from Florida, make the fake IDs to go to Florida to a pain clinic.
How did you know about that? Did you see him do it?
No, I heard Jason Singleton telling Betty about it.
Okay, so you heard Jason telling Betty. Did you ever hear anybody make any threats about making the fake IDs?
Jason, yes.
Okay, tell the jury everything you heard him say threatening about making fake IDs.
He said that if we ever told anybody that he'd get us whether he was in jail or not.
So you told Detective Reader all of that, I think it was in January, right, of 2011?
Yes.
Jason had been arrested. Or he wouldn't have been talking to you, probably.
Yeah.
Did Jason ever try to get you from the jail? I think you said the threat was, if you tell on me, it doesn't matter if I'm in jail, I'll get you. Did he ever try to get you from the jail?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Didn't hear from him?
No.
Didn't hear from anybody else who came and said, I'm here for Jason Singleton?
No.
Okay. Did anybody else ever make any threats to you over having told everything you knew about the fake IDs?
No.
About a day before Cheyenne left the home, she recalled a chaotic event on January 11 that illustrated the reason for why Angela feared for her life in that home. The justification came in the form of a softball that had been thrown through Jason's garage window. Perhaps the problem for investigators with respect to the leading motive for Angela's murder was that, despite the presence of fake IDs, there was no physical evidence pointing to a whole operation for making them, despite the eyewitnesses being sure of it. On February 10, 2011, Detective Reader asked Christina Markham to come back for a DNA swab. By this point, Christina had secured a lawyer who stipulated that she wouldn't be answering questions about Angela's murder. Detective Reader came off as desperate in their initial interview, in some ways guilting Christina to come forward about everything she knew, despite her thinking out loud that she probably should get a lawyer. The detective adopted the following line of reasoning with Christina. Why would you need a lawyer if you had nothing to do with it? The why would you form of reasoning would instruct how he would go about proceeding with the investigation. She had said previously that she wanted to be cooperative, so here she is, on February 10, willing to provide DNA and fingernail swabs and to talk without being prompted. But she also wanted to probe whether they wanted to give her an immunity deal in exchange for whatever else she knew.
I know that I've been advised not to say anything to you, and, saying, but I want to talk to you all. You all don't want to talk to me, and
Well, I'm not going to
the worst is not always the best thing, and I know, honestly, I can sit here and not say anything. It makes me look bad, I can sit here and I can tell you whatever I want to say to you, and it's still going to make me look bad. And no matter what I say, you all have an agenda to put me with this complicity to murder charge, which is not what happened. And you all don't want to hear the truth.
I'm not saying I don't. It's now in the hands of the two attorneys. It's in Pat Nash's and it's in the Commonwealth Attorney David Smith's hands. It's not up to me. It's not up to me now. It's up to those two right there to figure out, to talk with you.
Well, I want to talk to you all. You all don't want to talk to me.
No, it's not me.
Okay, well, they don't want to talk to me.
I mean, I wouldn't mind to. I would like to. I told you that day. I mean, that's why I brought you in to get your statement. But at that point, whenever you contacted Pat Nash and he talked with David Smith, it's up to them at that point to make an arrangement for that to happen. It's out of my hands now. I can't just sit here and talk with you. I can't ask you questions because you've got an attorney, you've attained an attorney.
I didn't know what to do.
And that's fine. That's fine, but at this point in time, I can't sit here and talk with you about it.
Well,
If that's what
and
it's
I
been asked to be,
understand that. I understand
then
that,
so be
and
it.
I am willing to tell you everything I know in order for you all to solve a murder. I'm willing to tell you everything I know. But you know what? I didn't do anything. I didn't. And I have a daughter, and I know Angela had 2 young girls. And I love my daughter more than anything in this world. And believe me, it breaks my heart that there are 2 small children out there who will never see their mother again. There's a mother who will never be able to hold their child again. And that's the last thing that I want for my daughter. And I can't help what somebody else did. I did not know what he was going to do, and I had no part in it. None. And you don't understand how the fact that, and I know you don't care because I am the one that's alive, so nobody cares what all this does to me or does to Anna. Nobody cares. And that's fine. But you know, the simple fact that this girl was wearing my clothes. You know, I sat on the same couch that she was on, 12 hours before? My DNA is all over that house.
Christina is referring to the fact that her DNA would be in the house because she used to live in Jason's home, and that her personal items, including her clothes, makeup, and car, were still at his home even after she moved on to her relationship with Nick. She said she elected to leave her stuff at the house because she saw Jason was depressed about their breakup. To be sure, investigators did get a match for Christina's DNA in the home.
Like I said, there's children who will never be able to have their mother hold them again. But I don't want that for my daughter as well. It's bad enough it happened to one person, to those 2 children. And what about her mom? Don't you think I think about these things every day? And I will for the rest of my life. Even on the best case scenario, which isn't going to happen. So they do want to talk to me, you know? So they do give me a deal, which they're not. But say they did. It doesn't matter because my life will never be the same because of this. And this is not what I wanted. I didn't ask for this. And my biggest problem is going to prison for something that I didn't do. And not only that, I don't know why it happened. To think to sit in prison for the rest of my life, and I don't know why something like this happened, that's a horrible feeling. You know, I can understand if it was something that I had done. I can understand because if it's something I did, I would know why it happened. But not knowing is the worst part. Like I said, I would like to tell you all everything I know. It's bad, which you've heard parts, but it's not as bad as what you all want to think or want to believe.
Well,
You know, and I'll tell you this, because this definitely crosses my mind. I know Peter's told Nash a few weeks ago that someone who in an interview had said that I had threatened to kill Angela on speakerphone. They had heard me say that. So I know you pulled my record. We talked about that before. No big deal. So let me tell you, I am not dumb enough to send anyone a threatening text message saying that I'm going to do anything to them, or on the phone threaten somebody, because it's terroristic threatening. And I'm not dumb enough to do that because I don't want to have a terroristic threatening charge. You know, so that never happened. No, the only time I talked to her was for maybe a minute and a half on the phone, and it was yelling and screaming, and she hung up, I hung up, whatever. You know, that was it. Because I didn't know her, and I'm not going to threaten somebody in order to get, because I'm too worried about a terrorist threatening charge, you know? Much less murder. But if I don't want a terroristic threatening charge and I worry about something as little as that, then obviously I'm not going to do something like this.
Well,
And I can tell you, Jason probably was good to her. He probably was. And so I can tell you with all the interviews that you've done with everybody who knows her and whatnot and was around them, they're going to tell you that Jason was good to her. He never did anything wrong. And that's Jason's personality. I had that Jason for a long time. And I can't tell you everything that happened because I didn't witness everything. And like I said, I don't care. I'll just sit here and tell you, y'all can slap whatever charges on me you want. It's going to happen regardless because I feel like that's the outcome that they want to have. But I am the only person besides Angela and Jason that know what happened. And I might not be able to tell you what happened in the very beginning because I wasn't there. But, and believe me, I've gone through it in my mind a million times. I don't think that she would want someone who didn't have involvement in her death to lose their life and go to prison for something that they didn't do.
well,
And she knows that I tried. And if there was anything that I could have done to change what happened, believe me, I would have. Don't you think I have enough guilt every day for the rest of my life? Because it's just little things. If I would have not gone and ever talked to him, none of this probably would have happened, you know? If Vanessa would have been a loyal friend to me, this would have never happened because she wouldn't have introduced her cousin to Jason. You know, I mean, it's just little things that could have changed all of this so that it never would have happened. You know, if I would have just known what was going to happen, then maybe I could have done something to change what happened. But I didn't know. I did not know. Now I wouldn't, and there's nothing I could have done to know. But regardless, I'll always beat myself up over that. Now I might not have liked this girl. Doesn't mean I want her to die. Doesn't mean I would want anything bad for her. Because I've never even met her. For all I know, she could be a really nice person, and she probably was. And if I ever thought me sending mean text messages would be a crime or would put myself in this situation, believe me, I would have never sent a mean text message to her. But I know you, Bretta. I know I said a lot of mean things. As far as Jason being the sociopath that he is, would see no consequences because he doesn't have a guilty conscience. You know, everything I do in my life daily revolves around my daughter, every decision that I make. And believe me, this is not a decision that I would make because I love Anna way too much.
Detective Reeder had, during the roughly 30-minute sit-down, reminded Christina that he couldn't probe or ask her questions, so everything she was saying was voluntary. The detective's silence appeared enough, anyway, to get Christina to fill the dead air.
I would rather tell you all what happened and tell you what I know than to have you all go out there and spend hours and hours and hours investigating this and coming up with something different than what's the truth.
Well, I'll talk.
And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm not by no means. But I'm saying I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. At the absolute worst place at the wrong time. And I did what I could do to stop it from happening. And there was nothing I could do. You have seen Jason, correct?
Mm-hmm.
He's what, 6 foot, 230, 240? I'm 5 foot, 130 pounds. He's a lot stronger than me.
Right.
No, I didn't. This is not something that I thought he was capable of. This is not something that had ever crossed my mind. I slept next to him for over 2 years. In the same bed with him every night. Do you know how easily it would have been for him to do that to me? You know, I said my mind goes back and forth. But I can tell you that right now I'm at the conclusion that she's not mad at me because she knows that I did what I could do to try to stop it.
Christina told Detective Reeder that she was at Jason's home that Sunday morning, January 16, and had tried to stop Jason from killing Angela, but couldn't because he was far bigger. Just like that, she was more than just a mere witness. She was an eyewitness. By now, Christina had been made aware that news cameras had captured her sitting in the gallery of the court in Somerset for one of Jason's hearings on January 31. She said this appearance was her preparation to face the murderer in court if she was compelled to do so as a witness.
You know why I went? Because I had to know that I could face him. Because at that time, I thought I was going to get a deal where I was going to have to testify against this man. Can you imagine if I had to wait 14 months before looking at him face to face, before seeing him, versus knowing that I could do it now? How much easier that would be on me if I could look at him in a courtroom today versus having to wait 14 months and doing it. It'd be a lot easier to do it now and know that I could do it 14 months from now than to ever try to just walk in and do it a year later.
Exactly 2 weeks later, on February 24, Christina tries calling Detective Reeder, but he misses the call. So he calls her back.
Hello.
Christina?
Hey.
Hey, this is Brian.
How are you doing?
Doing all right. You?
I'm good.
And I understand the predicament that you're in. And when you say that I'm skeptical of it, I told you all along that I don't think you're the person that killed her. I'm not skeptical in that sense. The only thing that I'm skeptical of, in a sense, if you can even really say skeptical, is your involvement after the fact, what happened at that point in time. And really, to be honest with you, the main thing that I'm wondering is who else helped after the fact. That is, and I'm not asking you to answer that. Don't contort that to where I'm asking you that question. I'm just, that's the information that I would like to be able to sit down and get from you.
Right.
And
and my biggest fear in not telling you that is that you're going to think the worst. And believe me, I was minimal in the scheme of things.
Right.
I talked to Jason, and just like I told y'all from day one when I went in there, I talked to Jason. I never lied. I never kept anything from you on the days leading up to the Thursday when he was arrested. But at the same time, I had to talk to him because I feared for my life. I feared for my child's life. And that was the best thing for me to do in order to know that I was going to stay alive. And I feel like you and I have a common interest when it comes to this, that we both, I want to tell you what I know because I want you all to find the truth.
Right.
I don't want y'all to find anything else. I want y'all to know the truth. And like I said, I can give that to you, but at the same time, I don't want to jeopardize myself by telling you too much or not enough or whatever. I'm scared of everybody right now.
Right.
I'm scared of her family.
Right, and like I told you before, I don't see any type of threats towards you. Haven't heard any type of threats towards you. I haven't to anybody involved in this case. If I do, I'll be sure and call and let you know, hey, Christina, be careful when you go out. There's been some threats on you or whatever, and we would look into that as well and try to stop that situation. And there's been no threats, no bad talking or anything in that sense, that anybody's life is in danger or there's a chance of any fights or anything like that. We had not been made aware of any of that stuff.
What was becoming increasingly suspicious was that Christina had asked multiple times for an immunity deal, but not once for witness protection. Less than 2 months later, on April 8, Detective Reeder and Christina are talking again. The detective reiterated that he can't ask her questions about the murder per her attorney.
I don't want you to think I'm sitting there trying to be a victim because I'm not.
Yeah,
I just don't
I know what you're saying.
And I swear I was. And then I didn't feel like I had a choice. And I didn't. And I honestly didn't know that he had that in him. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is the person that I lived with, that I slept with every night. Even though I feared he would do something to me and do something to Anna, but then I thought I was with Nick, he'd kill us all. Yeah, I feared that, but it wasn't something I really believed or thought possible, if that makes sense, you know?
Right. And which I think in these circumstances, nobody ever, when it's a loved one or a friend or something like that, nobody ever believes that they're capable of it, regardless. I mean, because it's somebody you love and cared for. So you don't want to believe that, of course. And I know you all had a rocky relationship before, but you'd never seen anything like this, of course.
I don't think you understand the magnitude of how close this was almost me, which doesn't matter because it wasn't me. I don't think he knew which one of us it was going to be. I really don't. And everything about her is me except for the person herself. It is the fact that I'm telling you, in his mind, he didn't know if it was going to be me or her. I know he didn't know.
Detective Reeder's assurances appeared comforting to Christina as she continued opening up about the dynamic between her and Jason in their previous life together. But this was all a calculated act by Detective Reeder to maintain rapport, so Christina would continue voluntarily talking, against the wishes of her lawyer. Because every word Christina uttered was another word that brought the detective closer to solving the case. To start, this conversation was done at a Kentucky State Police post, where Christina was booked for intimidating a witness in the legal process. Christina had learned that, the day before, her childhood friend Mariah Smith spoke with Detective Reeder about the case. She was hopping mad, according to Mariah. Christina followed Mariah out of the Fayette Mall where she worked, drove up next to her at an ATM, and demanded that she tell her what she told the detective. Mariah said they could go back to her own home to discuss, but Christina was insisting she know now. Mariah was terrified and left, but Christina tailed her. Mariah then ducked into a gas station and called police, who took Christina into custody. This wasn't the first time Mariah had a strange interaction with Christina. Christina had been looking for her at the Fayette Mall on the night Angela went missing. Mariah, who was the store manager at the Journey's Kids shoe store inside the mall, was outside smoking a cigarette when Christina emerged through the mall doors.
And she said, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember the exact conversation, but she said, do you have your keys on you? And I said, yeah, why? She said, I need your car. And she was very frantic, and I asked her if everything was okay, and she said, yeah, everything's fine. And I said, are you sure? You don't act like everything's okay. Is Anna okay? That's her daughter. I said, are you okay? Is Anna okay? What's going on? And she said, don't worry about it. I just need your keys. I'm going to take your car for about half an hour. And what else? She said, I'll put $40 gas in it. And I said, it won't hold $40 because I filled it up yesterday. And she said, well, I'll just leave you some cash in the car. And so without hesitation, really, I mean, I handed her my keys. I always did anything I could for her, and it was likewise. She always did anything she could for me. And then she said, "Here, trade me coats." And I said, okay. And so I took off my coat and she took off hers, and I was getting my things out of the pockets of my jacket while she got her things out of the pockets of her jacket. And then after we traded coats, she said, "Here, hold these," and she handed me a jewelry box.
And what was in the jewelry box?
Her engagement ring and wedding band that Nick had bought for her.
Mariah said she didn't tell Detective Reader about the car swap because she was her good friend.
Do you see Christina the next day? That would have been Tuesday.
Yeah, on Tuesday she came into the store again and she wanted to talk to me, and so we went in the back into the stock room, and she said, "Mariah, that girl has been reported missing." And
What girl?
I said, "What girl?" And she said, "That girl that lives with Jason, Angela." And I said, "Well, Christina, it wouldn't surprise me if Jason did something to her." And her eyes got really big, and she said, "What makes you say that?" And I said, "Honestly, if Jason thought getting rid of her would bring the two of you all closer together in a quicker time, then it wouldn't surprise me in the least bit." I said, "That, or from what you've told me about her, if she's as crazy as you say she is, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe she anonymously reported herself missing. You know, just to play a cruel joke on the two of y'all."
So her response to Jason was, "Why would you think that?"
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said because of what she told you about Angela, you also thought that it was possible that Angela had just run off and reported herself missing. What did she told you about her that made you think that?
She had told me that Angela did a lot of drugs, that she was kind of a irrational person, I guess you could say. And just...
She had not spoken highly of Angela to you.
Correct.
Fair enough.
Mariah also recalled a time that spring when they were sitting in Nick Markham's garage smoking cigarettes when Christina confided in her about what she saw that Sunday, January 16.
We were sitting in the garage smoking a cigarette at Nick's house, and she started to talk to me a little bit about about the situation. And she said, "Mariah tried to stop him." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "He was choking her and I tried to stop him. I was beating on his back and tried to stop him." Angela was passed out, and Angela woke up while they were there and started a fight with Christina, and Jason intervened.
Okay, so passed out, and Angela started a fight with Christina?
Well, she was passed out and she woke up while they were there, and she was mad about Christina being in the house and started a fight with her, and then Jason intervened.
So Jason killed her because she was trying to fight Christina?
That's the way I took it.
Okay.
Detective Reader had already established that Jason had a motive to kill Angela. Well, two. She outed him about his fake IDs, and he felt like he made a mistake marrying her. But detectives had to resolve a couple of lingering questions. First, Jason had experience divorcing women, so why didn't he do that here? And second, why in the world was Christina present? Why was the newly remarried woman who described Nick as the
best thing that's ever happened to me
there at Jason's home in the first place? Christina conveyed that she still had concern for Jason's well-being, despite her fear of his alleged sociopathy, but she also acknowledged that she and Angela did not like each other. She said she was at Jason's home on Saturday and saw a man coked up on meth who looked like he got hit by a train. She said she told him Angela wasn't good for him, and she gave the impression that she was there for social support. Investigators had a theory about what was really going on, and it really started to evolve after witness testimony of an incident at Jason's home mere days before Angela's murder.
Tell them about that.
She called one night, she was drinking and she was driving, and asked me if I could drive for her, and I said yeah. I knew it was a bad idea from the start. She wanted to go over to her house and pick up her mail.
When you say her house, where do you mean?
This was Jason's house. Angela was there. I'm assuming living with Jason at the house. So she came over, I drove for her, took her by the house. I knew it was a bad idea. She got out and got her mail. She goes up to the front door, she grabs the welcome mat, because she bought it. She peed on the front doorstep and brought some stuff back. I told her, come on, let's go. I'm not going to get in trouble. I'll leave you here. She went and threw a softball through the garage door, and then finally we left. She dropped me off and went on her way.
Okay. Were you alarmed by this, or did it seem normal, or?
Oh no, that's Christina for you. She gets on that level, she goes crazy.
That's Robert Dunn, a friend and one-time flirt of Christina's, who recalled the softball incident which, unbeknownst to him at the time, would become a key event in this case. Cheyenne and Betty, the two girls who stayed with Angela at Jason's house, also told Detective Reader about the incident. They added that Christina had threatened to break into the home and kill Angela after the softball incident, which forced the detective to really start digging into the relationship between Jason and Christina. Robert said Christina absolutely hated Angela, in part because Christina claimed she was using the stuff she left at Jason's house, and was very jealous whenever Jason went out with people not named Christina, including one time he was hanging out with her own brother. During a cookout, right before Jason and Christina broke up, Angela's cousin Vanessa recalled Jason offering to help her friend Nikki with her resume for a job at his company. Christina heard about this and physically attacked Jason. She had also sent demeaning texts to Nikki, calling her a fat cow. Jason told Christina, who was difficult to deal with when she drank alcohol, that she was not allowed back in his house that night, though he would eventually take her back hours later. When Christina found out Vanessa was Angela's cousin, she called her on New Year's Eve night 2011 and lashed out at her because she believed she hooked the two up. Christina was such a threat that Jason gave Angela a gun to defend herself when he was at work. In early January, Angela called the police because Christina kept threatening her, but she declined to press charges. She tried making Jason jealous by sending him photos of her with other men. Her antics pissed off Jason so much that he wanted her arrested, Vanessa said. Sean Frederick, the friend who supported Angela when she was kicked out of Jason's home, said she was on the phone the Friday night she was kicked out to figure out what she did wrong. Sean said Jason was more docile and he wasn't talking much. Angela asked him if the reason he kicked her out was because he was seeing another woman. Christina was listening and took the phone from Jason. "I'm here," Christina said, according to Sean. "This is my house now, you nasty bitch. These are my things. You can come get your stuff. You are not welcome. You are not welcome no more." Angela responded with a, "He's married to me, and the only thing he gave you was breast implants," Sean recalled. This was just one in a series of near-daily voice and text threats Christina leveled against Angela, according to Betty and Cheyenne, who also recalled times when Angela would put her phone on speaker to the voice of Christina threatening to kill her. There were nearly endless witness stories describing fights between Angela and Christina, who was described as an extremely jealous person with stalker characteristics. It really started to look to detectives as though Christina's appearance at Jason's court hearing wasn't about sizing him up for a future confrontation. It was looking more like she was there to support him and what he did. The combination of that news footage plus witness testimony about her erratic behavior mobilized Detective Reader to get more concrete proof that Christina wasn't actually scared of this guy, but rather was actually madly in love with him. Again, at no point did Christina ask for witness protection. Detective Reader fired off some subpoenas to get the call and text records for the phones of Christina and Jason, as well as visitation logs to Pulaski County Jail where Jason was staying. Nearly every word she had already uttered in that initial interview, including that she was scared, that Jason was a sociopath, that it could have been her and not Angela, would be checked against and contradicted by the hard data. What eventually emerged was a record showing Christina visited him at the jail 6 times between January 22 through to the end of 2011. But no visit was perhaps more baffling to detectives than the one on February 1, less than 2 weeks after she told Detective Ritter that she feared him. The call, which is very difficult to hear due to the poor audio recording, is, to summarize, flirtatious. She talks generally about optimism, that Jason is going to get out, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that she was captured on those news cameras, and that she believes she is working toward getting a blanket immunity deal. But there's more. The jail call includes occasional periods of silence, which investigators discovered, perhaps not surprisingly at this point, was because Christina was writing the rest of what she was thinking down on paper, to perhaps evade the ears of investigators. Christina's husband Nick found the notes in his home and brought them to Detective Reeder. In the notes, you can see she says, "I heart you. You are my whole world. We will be together. You will get off in Richmond and I'll wait for you. As long as we're all on the same page, not guilty, it will work out. Your mom doesn't trust me. That scares me. All I want is for you to get out, so we can finally be together. I won't do anything to jeopardize that. I'd live in a box with you. I don't care. Me being here is bad for both, because they want to use me against you. If not, they'll arrest me. The day you called, my attorney told me they were looking to charge me with complicity to murder." But what was more interesting to Detective Reeder was this. "If they use me as a witness, I'm not credible. I'll make damn sure. I won't if that's what you want." Christina was trying to make herself out to be an incredible witness to scuttle the investigative process. Christina visited Jason both at the jail and at a psychiatric facility on multiple occasions and, under the name Wiggy, topped up his commissary account, which is used to buy all sorts of things in the facility. It is assumed that this was an attempt to conceal her identity, but she also writes her full name down in other visitor logs. Despite all of this, she was somehow, at the same time, simultaneously, concurrently, cognizant of what investigators may discover. "I'm afraid they'll check her calls more," she scribbles during the jail call. By March 3, Detective Reeder received the return on the subpoena for all call and text logs from the phones of Jason and Christina. While the hundreds of pages of logs don't include the content of the communications, they still showed an informative pattern. On the Sunday Angela was believed to have been murdered, there were 85 text messages between Jason and Christina between 5:58 p.m. and 2 a.m. Christina told Detective Reeder that she left Jason's place that Sunday at 3 p.m. Between January 16 and January 20, Jason and Christina communicated every day, despite her claim to be concerned about the so-called sociopath. Not once did Christina bring any of these visits up to Detective Reeder, despite them communicating over several months. Not once did she say they were getting back together. Instead, she presented herself as a frightened woman, fearing repercussions from Angela's family and Jason, and kept reiterating her eagerness for a deal. By the third interview, Christina's credibility was so low that, when she provided what she said was the password to Jason's phone, Detective Reeder didn't even attempt it, because a wrong password too many times would erase the contents of the phone, thus destroying possible evidence. She started with not knowing anything about what happened that Sunday, to hearing about what happened, to witnessing what happened but trying to stop Jason, to actually getting into the initial fight with Angela but not actually killing her. Each successive interview retroactively making her a liar in the prior ones. It was blatantly clear to Angela's friends and Detective Reeder that the reason Jason kicked Angela out that night was because Christina and Jason were back together, and Christina was the one coming over to his house. Investigators were satisfied with the evidence and presented their findings to a Madison County grand jury. In November 2011, Christina Nicole Tompkins Markham was indicted on the charges of tampering with physical evidence, first-degree hindering prosecution or apprehension, and finally, murder. In a surprise development, Jason Singleton, who previously got 10 years for the hostage event, pleaded guilty in May 2013 to complicity to commit murder, 2 counts of tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison for his involvement in Angela's murder. There wasn't a single piece of evidence that linked either Jason or Christina to the crime, but there was plenty of circumstantial evidence. Nearly a year later, on January 21, 2014, Jason would provide this statement to Detective Reader just before Christina Markham's trial.
Angela came to our marital residence to retrieve personal property and refused to leave the premises. During this time, Angela ingested a large amount of Valium and was intoxicated to the point that she passed out. Christina Tompkins Markham and I arrived during this period of time. When Angela woke up, she began arguing with Christina. Christina and Angela began fighting, and I left the house and went to the back porch to smoke. I knew Christina presented a danger to Angela and knew that Christina had expressed her desire to injure or kill Angela, and in spite of that, I still left the residence. By leaving Angela unprotected in my home, I ignored my duty to protect her and manifested an extreme indifference to the value of human life by leaving Angela Frazier Singleton defenseless with the knowledge that Christina Tompkins Markham would likely injure or kill Angela Frazier Singleton. When I went back inside, Angela was dead. I checked her pulse and did CPR, but I could not revive her. Christina Tompkins Markham begged me to conceal the crime, telling me that I could not let her daughter grow up without a mother. I panicked and picked up Angela's body and placed it in the trunk of her car. I then drove the car to exit 108 off Interstate 75 and left her car in a parking lot. Christina was concerned that the body would be discovered with Christina's boot print on her face and suggested that we sever the body parts and dispose of them in different trash dumpsters across the state. Shortly before and in increasingly amounts after Angela's death, I began to use large quantities of drugs, including but not limited to Oxycontin, methamphetamine, and tetroamphetamine. In a series of what would be one bad decision after another, I retrieved Angela's car, which contained her body, from exit 108 and went to my house. I removed her body from the trunk, went inside, and that's where I committed the crime of abuse of a corpse by severing her body parts. I also committed the crime of tampering with physical evidence by removing, destroying, concealing, and altering the body of Angela Frazier Singleton and other evidence, including bodily fluids, flooring, clothing, and the implements used to dismember Angela Frazier Singleton. On or about January 19, 2011, I put Angela's body parts in garbage bags and disposed of these garbage bags in a rural area of Madison County, Kentucky.
But the state didn't believe his story. Prosecutors, in fact, said they didn't ask for Jason's testimony against Christina in court precisely because of that. Prosecutors argued in front of a jury that Christina and Jason were both involved in the violence that killed Angela, though it's not clear who was the one to strangle her. The state also believed Jason's brother Tyler was involved in the cover-up because his DNA, including blood, was found in the home. But a grand jury found insufficient evidence to indict him. After Angela's dismembered parts were dumped, Christina borrowed Mariah's car and jacket to conceal her identity, drove to assist Jason, gave him some of her husband's clothes to change into because his own clothes had soot from the fire they started to burn evidence, and gave him Nick's credit card to use to assist in his getaway to a lake house. Nick was not aware of any of what was going on. The motive was that Christina and Jason realized they wanted to get back together. That has been established. The question left to answer was, why didn't Jason simply divorce Angela, considering he's done this twice before? The answer to that is simply because they believed Angela and Jason weren't officially married. Yet. The story goes, Angela was supposed to, but didn't, turn in the marriage certificate into the courthouse within 30 days to formalize the marriage. Jason and Christina believed Angela was going to leave Jason's home with the certificate and turn it in, formalizing the marriage, thus making things more difficult for him because he'd have to go through a divorce process, which presumably involved his assets. So, Jason and Christina, who were running out of time as it was still within the 30-day window, went to his home that Sunday to find the license and destroy it to ensure the marriage would never become official. But when they arrived, they didn't anticipate finding Angela on the upstairs living room couch. A fight ensued in which Angela was badly beaten, stabbed 5 times, and strangled. It's not clear how all those drugs found by the medical examiner got into Angela's system. There wasn't a single piece of evidence that pointed to the culpability of either Jason or Christina. The only difference between the two was that Jason took a plea deal. Christina told Detective Reader during her initial interviews that she was concerned that if she ratted him out, he would say that she was involved. That also informed the detective's belief that she had more than the minor fighting role she admitted to having played in this. Christina's defense attorneys latched on to the fact that there wasn't that single piece of evidence pointing to her involvement, that her fingernail swabs came back negative, that the detective drew improper conclusions based on what was said by Christina and Jason, including Jason's insistence that she wasn't involved, that the fake ID operation was the only real motive here, and that the detective got tunnel vision when he discovered Christina's involvement in Jason's life. The lead defense attorney also argued that over the course of 2011, they allegedly found no witnesses, no evidence, and no motive for Christina's involvement in Angela's murder. All they found, he said, was suspicion, innuendos, and half-truths. On March 27, 2014, a verdict was reached.
If the defendant would please rise. The verdict is as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of complicity to murder under instruction number 8, signed by the foreperson. The next verdict is, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of complicity tampering with physical evidence under instruction number 10, signed by the foreperson. Next verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of hindering prosecution or apprehension in the first degree under instruction number 11, signed by the foreperson. You may be seated.
Christina Nicole Tompkins Markham was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Her appeal was denied. In journalism, they teach you to shorten your questions and not interrupt your interview subjects because people instinctively love to fill the dead air, such as, for example, to avoid awkward silences. It would appear Christina's nemesis wasn't just Angela, but silence. She could have walked out of those interviews, even though she was being pressured by the detectives to respond to questions about what happened that Sunday. She may have been consumed by the need to show that she was being cooperative, perhaps to get the heat off of her. Her defense attorney told the jury that,
You ever wonder why lawyers tell people not to talk to the police even if they're innocent? Now you know.
ultimately, it was Christina's words that were not lining up with the official record, which showed someone who had some sort of fealty to Jason that transcended the seriousness of the crime. Frequent phone communications after the murder, visits to the facilities he was staying in, and yucking it up with him without a care as to the possibility that the detectives were not just unwilling to give her an immunity deal, but were in fact working to seal her fate. Witnesses testified to Christina's bad behavior, attributing it to a bad case of jealousy, which is a normal human emotion. But to Christina herself, this whole fiasco was anything but normal. Mariah had been working at the shoe store days before Angela's murder when Christina and Jason walked in to exchange her daughter's shoes. Christina informed Mariah that they were getting back together. Mariah was supportive, but said they should take it slow, go about it the right way, and tell their respective spouses as such. Christina's response.
She thanked me for being supportive. And just before they left the store, she said, I know I'm crazy. And I remember saying, and I was joking when I said it, I said, well, of course you're crazy. You're crazier than a shithouse rat, but I love you anyways. And was laughing and joking with her, and she looked at me and she said, no, we're crazy.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to me narrate this story, which was based on the primary sources. Special mention goes to the reporters bringing light to these cases, to the court clerks for helping with the case files, and to you guys for engaging in the subject matter. I hope you're well, you're committing acts of charity, and don't be Jason or Christina.